all of the songs I think are good and great, and whichever one they choose is obviously going to make me happy. But there are times that I'll go, oh God, please pick this one, but
All right, everybody. We got Frankie Pine here today. She has won Best Music Supervisor for her work on Magic Mike in 2014 and 15 for Nashville. She's been the music consultant on the Oceans movies, Oceans 11, 12, and 13, and even for the soundtrack for Traffic, which got you a Grammy nomination.
Mhm.
So very excited to talk to you about your huge career and everything that you've accomplished so far. But before we get into all that, you mind taking us back and just letting us know how you got into music to begin with?
Well, I always say that I tripped and fell into it, because it's one of those things of I was working in New York, and I've always wanted to do something in music because I was an aspiring artist myself, but I always feel like if you can't give it 100%, uh, thinking that that's what you can do for the rest of your life, then you're probably not going to be successful at it. And I always kept thinking, well, there's something else I could do, I feel like, in music. And so I wanted to just promote music, and I found my way through doing compilation albums like totally hits the 80s, and putting together dance albums and different stuff like that, and then landed in film and television. And what kind of got me to LA is my now best friend said, hey, do you want to move to Los Angeles? And I said, sure, why not? What would I be doing? And she said, whatever you want. And I went, that's cool, I'll take that job. And that's how it all happened. So, you know, it's been fun ride.
Yeah, so you've been always so after being an artist, you kind of became a curator of music.
Exactly. Yes.
What how does someone go from being an aspiring artist to compiling, because those totally 80s and those sorts of compilations are huge. Probably they were probably bigger then than they are now, just because of the rise of the internet and all that. But how did you go from being an artist to curating those albums?
You know, uh, I've always been a big fan of music. My dad was a DJ, and it was a side job for him. So I was definitely his gal pal in tow to all of his gigs. And so, depending on where we were, whether it was a wedding or a dance at a school, the music would change. And I just became very familiar with lots of different genres of music, and learned a lot just from that experience. And for me, the kind of artist that I wanted to be obviously was like a pop artist, because that was the big thing that was happening. And um, just I wasn't that great at it, to be honest. And it just kind of fell into what I feel like I was good at, which was curating, different pulling together different songs, pulling together, making, mixtapes for people. I also worked at a company that made aerobic music tapes for aerobic instructors.
Mm,
So, and coming up with those playlists. So, things just kind of like started from there. I worked for the Mickey Mouse Club television show as the
nice.
receptionist, but I
Mm.
helped the Music Day people, come up with like, oh, who they should have come on the show for Music Day. And so it all just kind of like was a culmination of my love for music.
Yeah. So is that how you would as you're kind of rising in this career field, are you putting things like that on your resume? Like, well, even though you're a receptionist at the Mickey Mouse Club, were you then putting that as a credit, kind of like, contributor to the soundtrack sort of thing?
I don't really tell those stories very often, so you might
Yeah.
be the first one that gets that story.
Yeah. I mean, it's a cool place to start. I'm just wondering, for I'm trying to picture, someone, getting out of school or whatever, and how you started looking for jobs in that field, or or going from one job in that field to another. I have never seen an ad for like a totally you know, putting together, need someone for the Totally Hits 80s record or something like that, you
Exactly.
know?
I think, it's like I said, it is kind of like you tripped and fell into
Yeah.
it. But I also would encourage anybody, like just take any kind of job. I think any job really helps you, whether it's being a receptionist, whether it's interning, whether it's doing any kind of small job at any kind of company that is related to something that you're interested in. I feel like is a really great stepping stone for anyone that wants to learn something, and especially in a field that you're motivated to learn in. Like for me, I couldn't get enough of wanting to learn about music and getting to know different styles of music, different genres of music, and that's I would encourage any kind of job that gets you even just your big toe in the door, take it.
Hmm. So was the aerobic album, was that one of your first kind of professional jobs where you're actually curating music and putting music together for a specific purpose?
Um, say yeah, yeah,
And
and
then you had
it was a job that I actually learned how to license music as well. So,
right.
which was
Which is
also a really big factor, because we had to, even though we weren't getting sync licenses, we did have to get, a mechanical license through the Harry Fox agency. And, we kind of, it was a learning process of figuring out what licensing was about. And, you know, that was the piece on my resume that got me the job when I moved to New York City, saying I knew licensing. And
mm-hmm.
that was a job that got me, when a cold resume at PolyGram Records, so that's what got me in the door there. So, like I said, so any kind of job I think is helpful, and you'll take something away from it.
Sure. That one piece of that job was, and that's why you gotta tailor your resume to whoever you're applying for, and whatever, like you
Exactly.
said, whatever job you have might have some experience that's applicable to the next one.
Exactly.
Well, that's exciting. I feel like aerobic albums would be fun to do because it's all kind of high energy and
So high energy. And it was one of those things where the beats per minute had to start at this level, and then it had to take you up here, and then it had to bring you back
mm,
down because it was a full like hour class.
hmm.
So, your beats per minute were a big factor in what songs you chose.
Yeah, see, and that's getting really specific with what you have to come up with.
Exactly.
So
I
then
still
you
have my beats per minute chart from that job.
Nice. Do you as a music supervisor, is that something that you get on kind of your sheet typically, like we want something that like this BPM for this scene? Is that something that directors like look for, or do they leave that more up to you?
They leave that up to us. Like they'll there's a lot of times where the director will shoot something that to pick, just for feel or whatever, and then we may have to match it up later to that beats per minute.
Mm,
Like, oh, they shot to a Beatles song, which is hard to clear,
right.
but no worries, we'll find something that's in that same beats per minute that will fit the flow of the picture.
That's interesting. So when sometimes they'll be shooting with actual music playing in the room, like just to get the
Mhm.
actors in the right mood.
Yeah.
And then I think a lot of people don't know this, and I don't know how often they do this, but a lot of times they'll overdub the audio. So I guess of the speaker and all that. So they're able to just, and the sound designers do the background noise. So a lot of times you're not hearing anything that's going on in the room. So I guess they can do that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times we don't encourage it to be like a married to picture.
Hmm.
If there's no dialogue in the scene, they can play whatever they want. If there's dialogue, then it's better to obviously not use anything happening in the scene, any music playing in the scene. Like all of the stuff like on Nashville, most of that is piped, the music, the playback is piped through an earwig. And, if we're trying to capture any other kind of sound or dialogue on set, if it's just the performance, then you can just play the music out loud,
Hmm.
and then you just
Yeah.
step the song in later, to match.
Right. Of course, Nashville's a huge show. I gotta say though, me and my fiance have been watching Big Sky lately, and
Yeah,
you've been working on that, and actually don't watch too many network shows. I think we've gotten too used to kind of the unrated streaming shows, that
yeah.
sometimes network TV seems tame, but that show, she put it on, and I was like, I like this, and we've been watching every episode.
Yeah, it's kind of racy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little edgier and
Yeah,
it has more of that. I think also people are so used to binge watching shows. They're used to they're so sequential now.
yeah.
It's such a linear story now that I think it has more of a vibe that it might be on a HBO or Netflix or something like that.
And
Tell us a little bit
that
about
was
that
our
show.
intention. We wanted
Yeah,
it to feel like a streaming show, and we wanted the music to feel like a streaming show as well. I mean, because there is a big difference between, like a network which tries to typically, the music needs to fit like the same kind of demographic as the people watching,
right.
you know, that particular network. So we really had a lot of latitude musically to really kind of expand and kind of step outside of the box of a network show. So we've been able to use like Steve Earle and Leanne Womack and just a lot of like Buddy Miller, great music that just kind of fits the vibe and the feel of the place that they're in Montana.
Right.
And so that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, great job on that one. And you've been working on some other big hits too. The Flight Attendant, my
Hmm.
fiance was watching that show when it came out. Sylvie's Love. How's and I saw you used a song by Karen O. I'm a huge Yeah Yeah Yeahs fan,
Yeah.
so I respect that. Tell us a little bit about your work on The Flight Attendant.
So the flight attendant, it's what's amazing is that the two producers were from Nashville. They were the producers on Nashville that then started writing the flight attendant, and they brought me on completely different music. And again, just the what's awesome about being a music supervisor is that you get to explore all kinds of music. And this was, powerful female, music. And Karen O just exemplifies that to me,
Totally, yeah.
So, finding that particular song was, that we probably put up almost 100 songs up against that date scene, and
Wow.
felt like this was the best badass one, to for the date. It was definitely badass, but it also felt like it really helped the feeling between these two people, that it made that love, even in such a short period of time of that one date, feel real.
Right. That sounds like so much fun. I mean, like any job, there's going to be parts that are tedious, there's going to be the scenes that aren't so fun, but these pivotal scenes in shows, finding the right song is do you still get do you get a kick out of still finding the right song for those moments?
I am, because I don't actually watch a lot of television. I'm kind of like a good barometer, so if I get goosebumps, if I cry, if I, get elated, I mean, to me, that's when I know, like, oh my God, it's got to be this song. Even though it's really tough for me because I always say I'm just the server, like I'm just the server. Here's my platter of music. Pick whatever you want. I mean, deep down inside, I have my favorites, but all of the songs I think are good and great, and whichever one they choose is obviously going to make me happy, but there are times that I'll go, oh God, please pick this one.
Yeah. So is that how typically it goes? You'll give them like a choice, like you'll curate like 5, 10 choices for them or
Oh,
something for the
absolutely.
scene?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that about how many it usually is, like 5 to 10, or is it?
It really depends.
Mhm.
Sometimes producers and directors know exactly what they want and feel, and then there's others that just go, I'm not going to know it until I hear it, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
could take a lot of playlists. Like
Right.
I said, with the date, we tried so many, but there were also 5 or 6 people that were listening to it. And music is so subjective, because it's so readily available to everyone, so everyone's got an opinion about music.
Mhm.
So it's one of those things where you're finding the one song that satisfies 5 or 6 people is, it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you think your favorite type of scene to curate music for is?
Definitely, montages.
Yeah.
Montages are like the best of
Right.
finding something that just kind of works for this group of scenes that they're cutting together. And how does that song kind of work over all of those scenes and make everyone feel? I mean, besides, ideally, my favorite thing was like finding like the perfect songwriter to write me a song that worked so great in Nashville. Like that was like the best. There
Yeah.
wasn't anything more amazing than that. But then next would be the montage, I think.
Yeah.
We don't
Everyone
get a
loves a
lot of
good
Nashvilles
montage.
out there.
Y-
So yeah.
Do you find you are to save time, are you mostly only presenting music that you already know you can get permission to use, or sometimes are you just grabbing all your favorite music and then sometimes you worry about getting the license for it after the fact?
I try not to just grab music that I like, without knowing it's clearable,
Mhm.
because I don't want something to get put in there and have my director or producer fall in love with it and then
Yeah.
find out that they can't get it.
Uh-huh.
That's a
Right.
bummer.
Yeah. Mhm. Well, I would love to hear about your experience working as a music consultant on the Ocean's movies, because the music in that movie is so distinctive and great. Tell us a little bit about and Steven Soderbergh, such a huge name. How was it working with those films?
So, because I think the first one was very international, and musically it was international. Like the music was from all over the place, like France and Italy. And I made like met one of my best friends now, that all because the guys walk into this uh, place where I think they're getting their fortune told, and there's a song that plays there, and the woman that sang that song is one of you know she didn't even have a major record deal. She owned it herself. And I found her, and I was like, "Oh my God, can we use your song?" She's like, she's Russian. She's got this amazing story behind her. I mean, it's the music is just kind of like all over the place, and it leads you to all of these amazing people, that finding these amazing people. And yeah, I mean, it was definitely curating a very unique soundtrack, that's for sure. And David Holmes was definitely a big part of that, the composer.
Yeah. Yeah, the music, I mean, I never saw the originals, so I would assume that maybe the music was influenced a little bit by it, but it just has such a distinct sound, and I really like it. And I feel like, whether it was the originals or the newer ones that came out, I say newer, but they're like what, 15,
Yeah,
20
they're
years
over
old now?
now.
Yeah. But I feel like there were a lot of heist movies that came out after the newer Oceans movies that I feel like were definitely taking hints from the soundtrack.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, because there's now like this, when I think it was probably like maybe 5 years after like the series had kind of like happened. It was like, we want that oceans feel.
Yeah,
And that's what people were saying. We want that composer that has that oceans feel.
exactly. And another really great movie. It was a Grammy nominated movie. Was Traffic that you worked on, and you got a Grammy nomination. How
Mhm.
was that? Did you get to go to the Grammys, or did you want to go to the Grammys, or
This
tell
was
us about that?
actually pre-music supervisors actually being able to win the Grammy.
Mm.
So there was, we had to fight hard to get that, and that just happened a few years ago.
Hmm.
So yeah, this was a long time ago, and but Cliff is was the composer on that, and Cliff and I we just worked really close, and I've known Cliff for a while, and and also just finding like again like amazing music and very different music because just the way that Steven kind of shot that was, we when we were in one part of the US versus when we were in Mexico, the coloring was even different.
Hmm.
So like musically it was going to sound different in on either side of those colors as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I've seen a couple memes recently where it's like anytime there's like an American movie and they go abroad, it goes to like sepia tone.
Yeah,
It's like all of a sudden there's like a yellowish
color and
tinge to the
traffic.
to
Yeah,
the camera angle. But yeah, I remember really liking Traffic. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
me
But of
too
course,
actually. Yeah.
but I do remember it being intense. So how I feel like going from like a kind of a slick, cool movie like the Oceans movie to a movie like Traffic. I mean, and having to just listen to intense music all day. How is that? Does that change your like psyche for the
You
whole time you're working on that movie?
No, we listen to different things like all the time. Like, we work on multiple things as our day is, like I've got Big Sky happening, but I'm also doing a new show at Netflix called From Scratch, where there's music from Italy. And, so, I'm listening to Americana or classic rock and it 1 hour. And the next I'm like listening to, music in Italian, so that's just our day. That's just kind of like the amazing part of the day. But I think the best thing that I would say, about being a music supervisor is just the research of music is, researching something that you're unaware of, and digging in and trying to find out about it. Like I'm listening to all this Italian music now, and of course I have no idea what the songs are about. So it's like every song that I'm thinking about sending to the producers, I have to translate it to find out like what the song is talking about. And in order for it to feel like it's would work in the scene, I don't want the song to just because it feels right, but is it lyrically saying what would fit in that particular, scene? So it's all to me, it's all just like, polka music 1 hour and marching band at the end of the day. I mean, you have to listen to everything. In Big Sky, I had Pop Goes the Weasel. I had to make a version of Pop Goes the Weasel. There's always something, and it's always different, which is, I guess, what makes the job exciting. And the days are different. That's
Right.
for sure.
You said you like to use music that is already licensed or that that you can get permission for. So as music supervisor, do you have like your favorite licensing companies that you just work with, or do you have a catalog that you just go to and like, how does that part of the business work? Are you working with a particular sync company on a regular basis who has a huge catalog? Do you have like 4, 5, 10 of them that you're working with?
We work with everybody. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously we have the major labels, the major publishers, but then also the smaller ones, the little independent ones. I love using even just an independent artist that doesn't even have any representation. Finding those people like on Instagram or different websites, different, curated playlists and other, other places. Like I that's kind of like the great thing. Like when people reach out to you and say, hey, I love your work. Would you listen to my song? I don't have any problem listening to anybody's song. I'm not going to formulate an opinion about the song because that's not what my job is. My job is whether or not I can use it. If I feel
Right.
like I can use it, I'll let you know. But if you like, hey, is it a good song?
You're like, I don't care.
I don't really care,
Yeah.
honestly. It's really whether or not I can use it.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's probably your point of pride, I guess, then for music for a music supervisor who's worked with big artists to find, the little diamond in the rough
Yeah.
indie artists that you got to throw into a movie and be like, yeah, I discovered them, or I threw them in
Well,
there.
and we all want to do that as music
Mhm.
supervisors. We all want to be able to be the ones that say, yeah, I I was the first to use that person, or I used that person in that show or whatever, just to kind of be the one that, gave them a little bit of a leg up for a week of sales, because you used their song.
Yeah. Yeah, that's does that require a little bit more work or less work if you're working with a small indie artist and you like their music? What you shoot them an email and say, "Hey, we want to use your." Is that what you guys typically do? You just shoot them an email and say, "Hey, we want to use this and this," and then they
Yeah.
probably more often than not say, "Hell yeah!" But
Exactly. Yes, we
there
hope
might be
that.
less red tape with a small indie artist than a label artist.
I think that there, if the indie artist is smart, they'll say yes, obviously,
Mhm.
to whatever you're offering them. And I'm a very fair music supervisor. I give what I can, and I let people know this is what I have. So, you know, that's just kind of the way that I do my business, and everybody in town kind of knows that. So it makes it easier for me, and that's like, so anybody that I'm going to, whether it's a major artist or major label, major publisher, to like a mid-level licensing company or an indie, most people know what I have, and it's no skin off my nose. I don't get the money if there's anything left over.
Right.
So to me, it's like I might as well spend it. If I don't spend it, they're going to cut my budget for the next season. So I'd
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
spend it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Frankie, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Such a cool career and such a cool you know s- you've had a lot of great accomplishments.
Thank
How,
you.
you Grammy nominated, and you've done all these great shows. What's next? What are you working on that people haven't heard yet?
Well, the best one that's kind of coming up, I mean, besides for From Scratch, which is a Netflix show. It's
What's that going
amazing.
to be about? Are you allowed to say?
It's based on a book. I'm doing it with Hello Sunshine with the Reese Witherspoon's company.
Nice.
And so if you want to get the book, it's called From Scratch. It's written by Tembi Locke, who is amazing and one of our executive producers as well. But I'm doing that, and I'm doing A League of Their Own for Amazon.
Oh,
So
remake.
they're turning it into a series.
Okay.
And then I'm doing Daisy Jones and the Six, which is also based on a book from Hello Sunshine, and
Mm,
that's about a 1970s rock band. So
cool.
lots of original music. I've got actors coming back into band camp. It's been an ongoing, COVID, shut us down. So we're now going into year two of trying to get the actors back together, and
Yeah.
going back through guitar lessons and vocal lessons, and just getting familiar with the music, and getting them ready to become a 1970s rock band.
That's cool. So there's going to be some original music. So as a music supervisor and consultant, are you curating the writers and the producers of this music in any way? Are
Yeah,
you involved in that process? How does
yeah.
that work?
So typically, like in a show like Nashville,
Mm,
all of the songs were original songs. We did some covers, obviously, but these were all from, publishers of, demos that were never cut. And, so that was me going, sitting with the publishers in Nashville, talking to them. I mean, Nashville just like loved, lit up. Like there's so many songwriters that I'm still friends with today, still reach out. Is there anything that I can write for you today? So we had songwriter camps. We did all kinds of amazing stuff. But I was also involved in, our executive music producer was. So who was actually creating the music for the show? So the same case in point with Daisy Jones, so, the music supervisor in the team, it was Mandy Collier and I, when we first started. Mandy's now my boss at Amazon. She and I made a very short list of executive music producers that we thought would be great for the show. And, that's just kind of everything that's involved in music that we are a part of.
That's really cool. So it's more than just picking music. It's actually, I mean, like you said, in Nashville, you're actually you're part of the production team. You are curating those producers and the artists and finding the demos. So you said you were sent demos. Were you just like, this is what we're looking for, and then you have these writing camps also, and you're like, write us some stuff, and then you kind of select the best of the demos to actually flesh out and make into full production songs.
Yeah. I mean,
Very
some
cool.
of the demos were literally like iPhone recordings,
Yeah.
So you have to be able to kind of hear the song and know that it's, what it can be also.
Right.
And that's also like a big factor, and I think like the first 2 years, we had T-Bone the first year, and then we moved to Buddy Miller did the second season, third season, and fourth season. And then Tim Lauer did the fifth season and sixth season, I think. Yes. And, I would pick the songs, I would send it to them. What do you get their comments on it, and then it would go to the producers to have them listen and think if see if they like them.
Right. Do you, speaking of iPhone style demos, I think a lot of artists might think that they need to flesh out a song in order to help you hear it. You know what I mean? How often do you find that the better produced demos catch your ear more often than not, or since you kind of know what a song can be, is it either or? Are you, what's your opinion on that?
It depends on the situation. For me, because I knew the characters so well on Nashville, it was better for me to not have it be produced. Because it was easier for me to hear it the way that I knew that my character would play it.
It allows you to fill in the blanks a little bit more.
Exactly. But then there's, other ways of like, if I don't get a full demo, sometimes my producer can't hear it.
Yeah.
And, so it just depends on who you're working with and, how they hear things as well.
Yeah.
If you're going to use it, like if you're going to use like a demo, then sometimes it needs to be obviously a fleshed out demo.
Right. That's really interesting. Well, Frankie, thank you so much for spending some time and telling us about your very cool job. We like to end the interview by asking if you had one piece of advice for aspiring artists or aspiring in any career, what would it be?
I would say always just go after it. Don't give up. If it's what you want, go after it. And I just recently, my daughter is going into high school, and I had to do a little ritual pin thing on her and say some kind of little speech type of thing to her as I was pinning it on her. And what I said to her is, go kick ass. So that's what I would say. Bringing it backward.